Hello, I'm Brian Hubbard.
And I'm Lynne McTaggart.
And we are What Doctors Don't Tell You. And welcome to our second podcast. I mean, who'd have thought? We did one and thought that's enough, but apparently we have to do it every week.
Darn.
I know, really. And the idea is that, you know, we're going to talk about the news, but just sort of, we've been doing What Doctors Don't Tell You since 1989. So we sort of know some stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about the news as well as give you the news. So on which point, time to put glasses on and just tell you a news item came out a couple of weeks ago from the Netherlands, that they had another look at mammograms, which, as you probably know, are a routine screening program that every woman over the age of 50 in Europe, and I believe still 40 in the US, is invited to have in order to detect cancer. And the latest study has revealed that fully half of all the cancers that are being detected by mammogram are false positives, which is medical speak for seeing a cancer, but it's not actually there. And this is obviously very distressing for a number of reasons. Any woman told she has cancer, it ain't great news, and it often results in some form of treatment, even up to a mastectomy, which is breast removal, and yet the cancer was never there. And the researchers are sort of getting to the point of saying maybe we've reached the tipping point here with mammograms, because, you know, suddenly the risk is getting to be as great as any benefit. And they're saying maybe we need to take another look at this, see if there's better technology out there. But I know, Lynn, I know you've got lots to say about mammograms.
Well, I mean, this is outrageous, because when I think back to What Doctors Don't Tell You and how we started in 1989, we were writing about this in the first year. The problem of mammograms, the not enough evidence about whether or not they work, the huge numbers of false positives. And here's the problem with mammograms. They're so sensitive, they pick up lumps indiscriminately. So they pick up all sorts of things that are absolutely fine. They also pick up things like DCIS, which is called ductal carcinoma in situ, which has been made to be considered a pre-cancer, but actually in the absolute vast majority of cases will never progress to cancer. And as Brian says, the problem with this is that it unleashes the whole of the medical treatment protocol, which is, you know, surgery, chemo, radiation, and all those kinds of things for something that is not dangerous. But the other side, of the flip side of mammograms, is that it also misses a lot of cancers that are there. So what's most outrageous of all about this news is that they're acting like there's no alternative. And there have been for many years two excellent alternatives with far better track records. One is ultrasound, which is with a sensitive operator can pick up a huge percentage of cancers, far better than mammograms. And the other one is a newer technology called thermography, which picks up heat and is highly, highly sensitive. It picks up cancers in very, very early stages. So for anyone concerned about this and thinking that, you know, they're going for their annual mammogram, they should look at alternatives. And the other final point is to remember that mammograms cause cancer. They're a highly, highly powerful X-ray, and every X-ray you get can contribute to cancer, particularly in the aggregate.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about thermography, because you know, the radiologist worth his salt, even back in the 1980s, was using both methods, because mammograms detect mass, but thermography detects energy and growth. And that's really what you want to find, because growth means it's a fast growing cancer, fast growing tumour, and that's the sort that's going to be lethal. And paradoxically, of course, a mammogram doesn't see that. It can't detect growth at all, so it doesn't know if it's benign, if it's malign, if it's growing, if it's not, it can't give you that information. And it's quite interesting because there was really good evidence for the efficacy of thermography right from the 80s and 70s. I've researched this, and one theory why it was never taken up was because it was too sensitive, and it meant that it was going to cause an overload to the medical system, because, as you say, Lynn, it could pick up cancers that were like 8-9 years away from being in any way serious. And of course this meant a lot of extra work for the oncologist, and they just thought, well, this is just too much. And so for that reason, a lesser technology, mammography, was chosen instead. So yeah, so I think it is time for our public health services to rethink, reconsider,
and retire mammography.
Oh, yeah, well, yes, maybe I thought you meant they retire, but no, just retire the system. Yeah, there we go. All right, still staying on the subject of breast cancer. Another really interesting study came out just the other week about BRAC 1 or 2. Now, BRAC 1 or 2 are genes that we all have, and they help, it produces a protein that helps block cancer. But when you have a faulty gene, which is often a genetic inheritance, it increases your chances of cancer. And of course, this hit the headlines back in 2013 when Hollywood film star Angelina Jolie decided to have a double mastectomy because she had the faulty gene from her mother, who had in her turn died at the age of 56 from breast cancer. But the study coming out this week said yes, BRAC 1 or 2 faulty gene does increase your chance of cancer, but that cancer is no more lethal than the conventional standard cancer. So in other words, they're suggesting that women who do have this faulty gene actually have time. It's not a death sentence. It's no more a death sentence than a standard breast cancer would be. So rather than immediately deciding to have a mastectomy, you can spend a bit of time to see. I mean, very roughly, ballpark figures, a woman is likely, has a 12% chance of getting breast cancer. If you have the BRAC 1 or 2 faulty gene, that rises to about a spread from 16 to 60% more likely to get breast cancer. But very interestingly, because again I've researched this for the next issue of What Doctors Don't Tell You, there's a whole stack of things you can do to reduce, if you have the faulty gene. For example, exercise plays an incredibly important part and reduces your risk by 25%. Diet, of course, plays an important part. And so, there is, it's not lethal necessarily, it's not necessarily a death sentence, and 2, there is plenty you can do. Bottom line, don't panic.
Well, even more than don't panic, really tease out those statistics. Now, I did a big story at the time that Angelina Jolie decided to get her just-in-case mastectomy. And I was shocked when I started looking at some of the research. And that's, by the way, what we do all the time. We dig into the medical literature and we make that private conversation between doctors public. That's what our job is. And when I found that, when women have a family history of breast cancer, as Angelina Jolie does, they have a tiny percentage of getting breast cancer, even with that gene, even with BRAC 1 or BRAC 2. And they account for a tiny fraction of the cancers in the UK. They account for less than 1/5 of all familial cancer, believe it or not. And the vast majority of women who get breast cancer, 8 out of 9 women, don't have a family history of breast cancer. And the other shocking thing about it is what they've come up with as the solution, the just-in-case double mastectomy. There is no evidence showing that that preventive prophylactic surgery, as they call it, actually increases survival, believe it or not. When they've looked at that, they've also found that a lot of those women, almost half, suffer complications after surgery. So it's not the real point here. And this is what they're missing all the time that is really outrageous. The fact that an environmental trigger is what really ticks off cancer. To understand this, you have to understand how genes work. Genes are like the silent keys of a piano. They just sit there waiting to be played. And the thing that plays them, the thing that's really important here, is the quartet of atoms that sit above every gene, the epigenome. They are exquisitely sensitive to all kinds of environmental influences, from the air we breathe, to the water we drink, to the food we eat, to the friends we have, you know, the sum total of how we live our lives. They determine whether those piano keys get played. So you can sit there with a faulty gene, but that doesn't mean it's going to be expressed. And here's another really interesting and very important point. There was a study called the Women's Health Initiative, and it looked at hundreds of thousands of women to try to determine whether HRT was safe. They had to stop the study because there was such an excess of women getting cancer. Now, this goldmine of information of hundreds of thousands of women has been fantastic for many other researchers who have combed through it. And one set of researchers wanted to find out whether or not people with a familial history of breast cancer were more likely to get it. And they found it made no difference. Family history of breast cancer made no difference as to whether or not women got cancer. The only thing that caused cancer, that was linked to the cancer, was an environmental trigger. And the environmental trigger in this case was HRT. And here's what they never factor in too, Brian, that really irritates me. The solutions, the just-in-case mastectomy, also the HRT, if they've had ovaries removed. Now, Angelina Jolie went on to get her ovaries removed too, so she's undoubtedly on HRT. Both of those things increase your risks of cancer. Silicone implants have been linked to, and other breast cancer implants have been linked to a rare kind of breast cancer known as anaplastic large cell lymphoma. And it's a form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is the cancer that killed my mother. And so that's the solution causes cancer. And of course, HRT, even though they're now trying to poo-poo that Women's Health Initiative study, that demonstrated a 60% more likely risk of getting breast cancer among women taking HRT. So the point is, the solution is possibly more dangerous than the problem itself.